The human stood at the edge of the alien jungle, heart-pounding, breath-catching. The air shimmered with heat, and strange green mists drifted like restless spirits over twisted trees that bent unnaturally, their leaves glowing with colors no human had names for. He took a step forward, feeling the ground pulse slightly beneath his boots. Every warning from explorers before him raced through his mind. No one comes back from here. Yet, curiosity burned brighter than fear. He adjusted his pack and whispered, "I have to see it. I have to know." The words sounded foolish even to him, swallowed almost immediately by the heavy silence that fell over the jungle. A low hum resonated from somewhere deep inside, vibrating through his chest. He froze. The sound wasn't wind. It wasn't machinery. It was alive. Something was watching. Branches twitched overhead and shapes moved just beyond sight. The human's pulse quickened. He raised his scanner, which beeped faintly, unable to fully penetrate the thick canopy. Shadows darted across the ground, fast and fluid, like water sliding over stones. He swallowed hard. Easy, just one step at a time. The first touch of alien flora sent shivers up his spine. Vines seemed to shift when he brushed past them, curling toward him and then recoiling as if they were aware of his presence. Leaves whispered in a language the human couldn't understand, and tiny lights flickered across the foliage, like distant stars trapped in a forest. Every instinct screamed to turn back, yet every muscle urged him forward. A sudden screech split the air. He stumbled back, heart hammering against his ribs. Something small, feathered but not quite bird-like, leaped from a tree, its eyes reflecting a sharp intelligence. It hissed at him and then disappeared into the mist. He exhaled slowly, his hands shaking. "I'm not alone," he muttered. The realization sank in. This jungle had witnesses, maybe even hunters, hidden just beyond perception. He moved cautiously, each step making a crunch in the soft, moss-covered soil. His ears caught faint rustling behind him and he turned sharply, scanning the dim light. Nothing. Yet he felt eyes, countless eyes, observing him. Anxiety rose, but with it came a strange exhilaration. No human had dared go this deep in years. He was alive, moving where others had only vanished. Suddenly the ground gave way beneath his foot. He yelped, sliding down a steep slope into a shallow pool of glowing water. Cold burned through his skin. When he looked up, the trees seemed taller, denser, and more alien than before. Something shifted above, a massive silhouette blending with shadows. The human's breath caught in his throat. What is that?" he whispered. A chill ran through him. The air trembled with the sound of movement, like a drumbeat of giant feet. He realized he had walked into a predator's territory, but it didn't attack. It circled, silent and deliberate, forcing him to move slowly, deliberately. Fear gripped him like a vice, but he forced himself to stay calm. Panic would mean death. Observation could mean survival. He noticed markings on the trees, deep scratches, clawed patterns, some older, some fresh. Evidence of others, of those who had dared the jungle and failed. A pang of sorrow struck him. Whoever survived here had to understand more than strength. They needed patience, cunning, and respect. He knelt, touching the soil, feeling the vibrations through his fingers. Every creature in this jungle left traces. Every motion told a story. He had to read it. The hum of the jungle intensified. The glowing flora pulsed in rhythm with it. The human closed his eyes for a moment, listening. Tiny creatures scuttled across the leaves. Large shadows moved just beyond his line of sight. The jungle was alive, intelligent, and testing him. He opened his eyes, determination hardening. "I will not be like the others," he said quietly. "I will see it. I will survive." A sudden gust of wind brought the smell of iron and wet soil. His stomach twisted. There was movement. A large shape darted between trees, faster than any animal he knew. It paused, studying him, then vanished. His legs shook, but he forced them to hold steady. He realized this wasn't just a jungle. It was a proving ground. Every sound, every shadow was a question. Are you worthy? As night approached, the human found a small ledge overlooking a narrow ravine. He sat, knees drawn up, scanning the strange horizon. The jungle's whispers filled the air, a chorus of unseen life. His mind raced with possibilities, dangers, and strategies. He was terrified but also alive in a way he had never been before. He was alone yet not alone. Every predator, every creature, every rustling leaf would soon learn of his presence. A distant roar shattered the calm, echoing across the treetops. It was not the first human had heard, but the resonance was different, older, sharper, intelligent. His eyes widened. The real danger of this jungle was not random. It was watching, calculating, and waiting. He clenched his fists, feeling a surge of courage. "Then let it watch," he said aloud, voice steady despite the fear. "I'll show it what a human can do." The jungle responded with a low, vibrating hum, as if acknowledging his challenge. And in that moment, the human understood that surviving here would demand more than courage. It would demand respect, instinct, and a mind sharper than the predators themselves. The first night in the alien jungle fell, alive with sounds and unseen eyes. He was a trespasser in a world no human had conquered, but he was determined. Somewhere in the shadows, something massive stirred, observing the human's every move. The game had begun. And for the first time, the jungle faced a human who was not afraid to play. The human woke to a wet, glowing fog curling around his legs. The jungle was alive, restless, as though it had never slept. His muscles ached, but every sense was sharper than before. The air carried new sounds, low growls, branches snapping in distant shadows, and a subtle shift of wind that felt like warning. He rose slowly, scanning, and noticed tracks he had not seen before, large, clawed, and fresh. Something was moving nearby, watching him. He crouched behind a twisted tree, heart pounding. "Show yourself," he whispered, voice low but steady. There was no answer, only a tense silence that pressed against his chest. The tracks led toward a ravine, and he had no choice but to follow. Each step was careful, measured, avoiding loose rocks and brittle leaves. Every instinct told him danger lurked just ahead, and he welcomed it. He had come this far to learn, not to flee. A rustle erupted from above. Something large dropped from a tree, landing silently on all fours. The human froze. The creature's skin shimmered with chameleon-like patterns, blending perfectly with the shadows. Its eyes glowed amber, intelligent and predatory. Its claws scraped lightly against the soil as it circled him. He held his breath, studying its movements. Panic would be death. Patience could be survival. The predator leaped, its speed shocking. The human rolled aside, narrowly avoiding a slash that would have torn through his chest. He scrambled to his feet and grabbed a fallen branch, holding it like a staff. The creature snarled, a deep, vibrating sound that shook the fog. Its gaze was sharp, calculating, testing him. "You want me?" the human said, voice steady, though his heart raced. "Then come. I'm not easy prey." The creature lunged again, faster this time. He dodged, swung the branch, and missed barely. Each move demanded split-second timing. Adrenaline surged through his veins. He felt alive in a way he never had. Fear was sharp, but so was determination. He realized he had to understand this predator, not just fight it. Strength alone would not save him. He backed toward a cluster of trees, hoping to gain leverage. The predator followed, silent and deadly. Its body was a blur, every muscle coiled for attack. He noticed its eyes studied him, learning, anticipating. The human understood, it was hunting but also assessing. He whispered to himself, "Then I'll show you why humans survive where others fail." A sudden movement to his left caught his attention. A smaller creature, almost cat-like with iridescent fur, darted toward the predator, claws extended. It struck at the larger predator, forcing it to turn. The human's eyes widened. It wasn't an ally exactly, but it disrupted the attack long enough for him to make a decision. He dove toward a fallen tree trunk, rolling behind it, barely escaping the predator's swipe. The human scrambled onto the trunk, breathing heavily. "You're smart," he muttered. "But so am I." He gripped the branch tighter and watched the predator circle below. The jungle seemed to hold its breath, the fog swirling like a living thing. Every sound, every shadow was amplified. A twig snapped. He tensed, but it was only a bird-like creature that scuttled across the ground, unnerving but harmless. The predator roared, a low, resonant sound that shook the leaves. The human's pulse raced. He realized the creature was frustrated. It had never encountered prey that moved with both caution and unpredictability. He adjusted his stance, keeping low and moving silently, forcing the predator to readjust constantly. This was a battle of minds as much as strength. Time stretched. He felt exhaustion creeping in, muscles trembling from constant focus. Then he noticed something strange. The predator's rhythm faltered, just slightly. It hesitated before lunging, and in that moment the human struck, not with brute force but with precision, jabbing the branch at a vulnerable spot he had observed near its foreleg. The predator yelped, not in pain but surprise, and backed away. "You're clever," the human whispered. "But cleverness isn't enough alone." He took a slow step back, eyes never leaving the creature. The predator crouched, eyes narrowing, then with a fluid motion, it vanished into the fog, leaving the jungle eerily silent. The human exhaled, relief and adrenaline mixing into exhaustion. He lowered the branch, legs shaking. "I survived," he muttered, voice trembling. Yet deep inside he knew this was only the beginning. The jungle had tested him once and it had learned his limits. He had learned theirs. Somewhere in the shadows, larger threats waited, predators that were smarter, faster and hungrier. A soft hiss came from the fog. The human's head snapped toward the sound. A pair of glowing eyes reflected his own. Not the same predator, something smaller but equally watchful. It slinked closer, curious, evaluating him. The human froze, then slowly extended a hand. "I mean no harm," he said quietly. The creature tilted its head, studying him for a long moment, then disappeared, leaving only the faintest ripple in the mist. He knelt on the damp ground, touching the soil. His hands were scratched and bleeding, but he felt alive in a way he had never known. Fear and triumph coexisted, sharp and vivid. He whispered to himself, "If they respect caution, maybe I can learn from them too." Night crept across the jungle, shadows twisting into impossible forms. He set up a makeshift shelter, careful to avoid snapping branches or glowing vines. Every sound was amplified, the rustle of leaves, distant roars, the subtle vibrations underfoot. Sleep would be dangerous, but his body screamed for rest. He closed his eyes, listening, learning, already anticipating the next encounter. The human survived the first hunt, but the jungle's true challenge had only begun. Somewhere in the darkness, unseen predators observed, noting every movement, every reaction. Respect had been earned just a little, but the game was far from over. And the human knew, deep in his bones, that every step forward would demand more than courage. It would demand understanding, instinct, and the relentless will to survive. The human pushed through the thick undergrowth, every step sinking into the damp, glowing moss. The jungle had changed overnight. Trees twisted into shapes he had never seen, their branches stretching in impossible angles. Shadows stretched unnaturally, moving independently of the dim light that filtered through the canopy. A low mist curled around his ankles, carrying a faint hum that resonated through his chest. Every sense screamed caution. He paused, scanning the horizon. Paths that had seemed clear moments ago now disappeared into dense foliage, and vines that had been still before now twisted toward him like living fingers. "This place, it's alive in a way I've never felt before," he muttered. His voice sounded small, swallowed quickly by the jungle's whispers. The first trap struck without warning. A branch snapped beneath his foot, and a vine shot out from the shadows, wrapping around his ankle and pulling him forward. He stumbled, yanking the vine free with a sharp pull that left a sting of blood on his skin. Heart hammering, he realized the jungle was testing him in more ways than predators. Every step was a puzzle. Every move could be a mistake. He noticed the ground shifting subtly, like the forest itself was rearranging. Paths twisted back on themselves, familiar landmarks vanished, and he found himself walking in circles. Frustration burned in his chest, but fear kept him alert. "I have to think," he whispered, trying to calm his racing mind. "Every move has to count." A sudden screech shattered the air and he spun around. A flock of small, flying creatures burst from the trees, their bodies glowing faintly in the mist. They darted at him, weaving around his head, blinding him with movement. He ducked instinctively, swatting at the air, heart hammering. One grazed his shoulder, leaving a warm streak of blood. He hissed in pain but refused to retreat. "Not now," he muttered, teeth clenched. "I won't let this place break me." As he pushed forward, he stumbled upon massive claw marks on the trees, deeper than any he had seen before. They were fresh, and the ground beneath was churned with enormous footfalls. The jungle was a maze of predators' territory, each section watched by a different, unseen hunter. He realized that he was navigating a battlefield he could barely understand, where every shadow could conceal death. Suddenly, the fog thickened and shapes appeared, tall humanoid silhouettes that seemed almost human but moved impossibly fast. His mind spun. Were they predators, illusions, or something else entirely? He tightened his grip on the makeshift staff he carried, ready for an attack. "Show yourself," he shouted, voice echoing unnaturally through the twisted canopy. There was no immediate response, only the whisper of the wind, or was it whispers from the jungle itself? A low growl vibrated through the soil beneath him. The ground shook slightly, and the humanoid shapes shimmered and vanished. The human's chest heaved as he realized that this jungle could manipulate perception, bending reality itself. His mind felt stretched, tested, every thought scrutinized by forces he could not see. Panic flickered, but he forced it down. Clarity was survival. He remembered the patterns he had learned from the first hunt, the patience of predators, the subtle clues left in movement, the way vibrations traveled through the ground. He knelt, touching the soil, feeling the tremors and pulses beneath his fingertips. Slowly, carefully, he began to map the jungle's maze, noticing where the paths shifted and where the illusions tricked the mind. Each observation was a victory, a small foothold in an environment designed to crush the unprepared. Movement flickered in the mist ahead. Something enormous pressed against the shadows, its shape only partially visible. A predator? Or another illusion? The human froze, analyzing the air, the ground, the faint scent carried by the wind. It moved with intention, deliberate and controlled, as if assessing him. He held his breath, unwilling to betray fear. The jungle pulsed with life around him. Bioluminescent vines flared in response to his presence, and the mist swirled with faint echoes of past hunters. He realized he could almost sense the creature's thoughts, a rhythm in their motion, a pattern in the chaos. "I have to stay ahead," he muttered, voice barely audible. "One step, one breath, one choice at a time." Suddenly, a massive shadow lunged from the fog, narrowly missing him. He dove sideways, rolling across wet ground, and came up on one knee. His staff met nothing but air, but the pulse of energy from the predator's strike rattled his bones. He stared at the fog, sweat and blood dripping from his forehead. "You're fast, but I'm faster," he said, voice steady despite the fear racing through him. The creature vanished as suddenly as it appeared, leaving only a disturbed patch of glowing moss. The human's chest heaved as he stood, aware of the sharp sting of exhaustion. Every nerve was alive, every sense on edge, but he had survived. He had learned the maze, even if only partially. The jungle had tested him, twisted his mind, and forced him to adapt to impossible conditions. A soft hiss came from a nearby tree, and a pair of luminescent eyes watched him. He met the gaze, holding still. The eyes blinked once, then disappeared. For the first time he felt not just fear but recognition, from the jungle itself. It acknowledged him as something different, something capable of surviving the deadly maze. Night approached, thick and suffocating. The human found a shallow cave-like hollow beneath a twisted root and settled inside. He wrapped his arms around his knees, listening to the jungle hum, the subtle clicks of predators, and the distant rustle of something enormous moving above. Sleep would be brief and shallow, but he welcomed it as a pause before the next trial. He whispered into the darkness, "I'm still here. I'm learning. And I won't stop." In the maze of shifting trees and living shadows, the jungle had not won. The human had survived its first true test of cunning and endurance. Somewhere in the fog, unseen eyes followed, measuring, judging, and perhaps respecting the presence of a mind sharp enough to navigate the deadly maze. The human moved carefully through the thickening jungle, muscles tense, senses sharpened like knives. The fog had grown heavier, swirling in strange patterns, and the trees bent unnaturally overhead, forming tunnels of shadow. Every step carried the weight of anticipation. He knew, deep in his gut, that the apex predator of this world was near. Something massive, intelligent and patient waited, and it would not tolerate mistakes. A low rumble vibrated through the ground. He froze, every nerve alert. The sound grew, deep and resonant, like a drum echoing through the forest. His heart pounded in rhythm with it. He scanned the mist. Shadows shifted. Something enormous moved just beyond sight. He clenched his fists, gripping his staff tightly. "I won't run," he whispered. "Not this time." Suddenly the forest erupted. Trees swayed violently, and a massive shape emerged from the fog. The apex predator towered over everything around it. Its skin shimmered with dark iridescence, muscles rippling under a sleek, armored hide. Eyes glowed amber, intelligent and calculating. It moved with a grace that belied its size, each step measured, deliberate. The human stomach twisted. Fear surged, but awe followed close behind. The predator's gaze locked onto him. Time seemed to slow. He could feel the creature studying him, analyzing his posture, his breathing, his reactions. Every instinct told him to flee, but he held his ground. "I'm not your prey," he said, voice steady despite the tremor of adrenaline. "I'm your equal." The creature growled, a sound that shook the mist and made the glowing vines quiver. It circled him, massive paws leaving deep impressions in the soft soil. The human noticed its eyes, calculating, testing, almost curious. This was not a mindless hunter. It understood strategy, strength, and challenge. He realized survival here would not come from aggression alone. He needed cunning, patience, and respect. The predator lunged suddenly, fast and precise. The human rolled to the side, barely avoiding a swipe that could have crushed him. He struck back with his staff, connecting with a limb, but it barely registered. The creature didn't recoil, it only studied him more intently, shifting its stance and watching every motion. He scrambled to higher ground, climbing a fallen tree that arched over a small ravine. From this vantage he could see the predator more clearly. It paused below, coiled like a spring, muscles tense, breathing low. His chest burned, but he forced himself to remain calm. Panic would be fatal. "You're smart," he said aloud, trying to communicate if only to steady his own mind. "I see you. I respect you. But I won't let fear control me." The predator growled again, almost as if responding, circling to find a new angle. Every shadow seemed alive, every rustle in the leaves a potential attack. The human's mind raced, calculating, adapting, reading the predator's rhythm. He remembered the lessons from the maze and the first hunt. Patience, observation, and anticipation had kept him alive so far. He crouched low, moving slowly across the trunk, forcing the predator to follow without leaping. Each step tested his balance, each breath measured. He realized the apex predator wasn't just testing strength, it was testing intelligence, strategy, and the ability to survive under pressure. A sudden roar erupted from the creature, deafening and powerful. The tree trunk shook. The human's legs quivered, but he steadied himself. The predator lunged again, faster this time, its claws slicing the air just above his head. He swung the staff, catching the edge of a limb and yanking it toward him, creating a barrier between them. The creature snarled, stepping back momentarily, but its amber eyes never left him. "You're not like the others," the human whispered, adrenaline surging. "I know fear, but I also know caution. I won't make the mistakes they did." The predator tilted its head, almost as if understanding, circling closer, muscles coiled, testing him. A tense silence stretched between them, broken only by distant calls of unseen creatures and the rustling of glowing leaves. Then it struck again, slower this time, measured, almost theatrical. The human rolled, twisted, and struck a limb again, not to hurt but to communicate that he could defend himself. The predator paused, breathing heavy, and studied him longer than ever before. For a moment, something in the jungle seemed to hold its breath. The human realized the predator was not just hunting, it was recognizing. Finally it stepped back, massive body blending into the fog, but its gaze remained locked on him. The low hum of the jungle resumed, a rhythm that felt almost approving. He sank to his knees, chest heaving, adrenaline still screaming through his veins. "You respect me," he whispered, awe and exhaustion mingling. "And I respect you." The jungle around them seemed calmer now, less threatening though still alive with danger. The apex predator had not attacked, but it had marked him, acknowledged him. The human understood this was a rare gift, a recognition of skill, courage, and intelligence. He had faced the ultimate predator of this alien jungle and survived, not through force alone, but through understanding, patience, and respect. As night fell, he settled near a massive root, exhaustion weighing on him. He looked out at the fog-shrouded forest and whispered to the shadows, "I'm still here, and I will survive, no matter what comes next." Somewhere in the mist, the predator lingered, observing, teaching, and waiting. And for the first time, the human felt that survival here wasn't just about strength, it was about proving that even in a world of monsters, a human mind could earn respect. The jungle pulsed around him, alive and intelligent, but for the first time he felt less like prey and more like a participant in its challenge. Somewhere out there, the apex predator watched, a silent acknowledgement that the human had passed the test, for now. The human moved cautiously through the dense jungle, muscles stiff, body bruised and bleeding from weeks of struggle. The fog hung thick, glowing faintly with alien light, masking every shadow and twist of the trees. The air was heavy, charged with the hum of unseen life. Every step reminded him of the hunts, the traps, and the apex predator that had tested him. He was alone, but he could feel the eyes of the jungle following him, still watching, still judging. He stumbled over a twisted root and fell to his knees, gasping for breath. Pain shot through his legs, but he forced himself upright. "I'm not done," he whispered, voice rough and dry. His mind replayed the predator's amber eyes, the way it had circled him, measured him, and then withdrawn in acknowledgement. That moment had been more than survival, it had been recognition. A shiver ran down his spine. No human had ever earned such respect here. Ahead, the jungle shifted, almost like a living wall. Paths he had relied on before were gone, replaced by dense, twisting undergrowth and strange glowing flora that pulsed with movement. A soft, almost musical hiss reached his ears. Something was near, moving without sound. His pulse spiked, but he forced himself to remain calm, every muscle ready. A shadow darted between two enormous trees. The human froze, heart hammering. The shape grew larger as it approached. A predator, massive and sleek, yet smaller than the apex he had faced before. Its eyes were curious, watching him cautiously. The human held his hands steady. "I'm not here to fight," he said softly, voice steady despite the tremor of adrenaline. The predator tilted its head, sniffed the air, and then vanished into the mist. He pressed forward, moving through the jungle with careful precision. The lessons of the maze, the first hunt, and the confrontation had etched themselves into his mind. Every sound, every movement of the ground, every shift of shadow could mean danger. But for the first time he moved with a strange confidence. The jungle respected him, or at least tolerated him. Hours passed. He found the remains of past expeditions, broken equipment, tattered clothing, dried blood, but no humans. The jungle had claimed all who had entered before him. His chest tightened with grief for them, but he pushed it down. Survival demanded focus. He whispered to the air, "I won't be like them. I will leave this place alive." Then a deep rumble rolled through the ground, shaking loose leaves and vibrating his bones. He froze. The apex predator had returned. Its enormous form emerged from the fog, muscles rippling under dark iridescent skin. Amber eyes locked onto his, and for a moment, time froze. The human felt the weight of the predator's gaze, a mix of judgment and acknowledgement. "You've made it this far," he muttered, voice low, almost to himself. "Oh, I'm still here." The predator circled him slowly, silent except for the low hum of its breathing. Every instinct told him to move carefully, but he stayed rooted, refusing to appear weak or fearful. The predator stopped, mere feet away, and studied him. The human's mind raced, recalling every lesson learned, every moment that had kept him alive. He reached slowly into his pack and pulled out a small piece of reflective metal. Holding it up, he caught the predator's gaze in the reflection. The creature blinked, tilting its massive head. A subtle recognition passed between them, a silent acknowledgement of intelligence, courage, and respect. 4 hours he moved through the jungle with the apex predator observing, neither attacking nor retreating. Every step was tense, calculated, and measured. The human felt the weight of the jungle's judgment, and yet for the first time he felt a connection, a fragile, unspoken understanding between human and predator. Night fell, thick and suffocating. The human found a natural hollow beneath an ancient tree, its roots forming a protective canopy. He collapsed, exhaustion hitting him like a tidal wave. Every wound throbbed, every muscle screamed, but he was alive. He touched the soil, feeling the subtle vibrations beneath, sensing the quiet stirrings of creatures in the dark. The apex predator had not followed him inside. It had left a silent mark of respect. He whispered into the darkness, voice rough and hoarse, "I'm still here. I survived where no one else did." Tears mingled with sweat and blood on his face. Relief, sorrow, and pride swirled together. He thought of the others lost to the jungle, and for a fleeting moment, guilt threatened to overwhelm him. But survival was not shame, it was understanding, adaptation, and respect for forces greater than himself. Outside, the jungle pulsed with life. He could hear rustling, distant growls, and the faint shimmer of glowing eyes watching from the fog. The apex predator's presence lingered, a silent sentinel marking his passage. The human realized the jungle had not only tested him, it had accepted him in its alien, merciless way. At dawn he rose slowly, limbs stiff but determination unbroken. He took one last look at the alien forest, a mix of fear and awe filling his chest. "I'll leave, but I'll never forget," he said quietly. The jungle seemed to hum in response, alive and watchful. Somewhere in the shadows the apex predator stirred, its amber eyes glinting briefly in the morning mist. The human began his journey out, each step careful but sure. Every sound, every shadow, and every flicker of movement carried a new meaning. He had survived the impossible, earned respect where no human had before, and walked alone through a world that had claimed all others. The jungle watched him go, alive with predators, danger, and intelligence, yet it no longer felt hostile. He had passed its ultimate test. When he emerged from the alien trees, the light of the sun struck his battered, bruised form. His clothes were torn, his body marked with scratches and scars, but his eyes shone with a clarity earned only through survival. He was the only survivor, a human who had walked through the deadliest jungle in the galaxy and lived, not through brute strength alone, but through intelligence, patience, and a respect that even predators could recognize. And somewhere deep in the jungle, unseen eyes followed him one last time, acknowledging that this human was different, extraordinary and worthy. He had returned, alone, alive and respected.